Hello and welcome to Thursday Night Live. I'm your host, Dr. Rita Louise, and thank you all for tuning into this show tonight. I think we're going to have a great show. My energy is great. When my energy is great, that means I'm like upbeat and fun, and we're just going to go from there. So tonight's topic is very timely and it goes along. So I just dropped an article. You can find it either on my webpage, soulhealer.com, or on my Substack. And I'm at Dr. Rita Louise on Substack. And the article is called Hidden Danger, Exposing the True Cost of America's Chronic Disease Crisis. And I'm not going to talk about that in particular today, but there was something that happened just as I was getting ready to post it. And that was last week, and it was an announcement by Trump about working with drug companies to reduce some drug costs. Now, where it got interesting was that pretty much the only drug that got reduced in price were what are called GLP-1 receptor if I could read my antagonists. Yeah, receptor antagonists. And so you might be going, okay, so what's that? And so brand name wise, I think you've all heard of them. And we're talking about products like Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, and Zepbound. So all you have to do is watch a little bit of TV, and I'm sure you've seen a commercial for one of them with people dancing through the street because they're going to control their A1C and lose weight and do all this stuff. And the reality is a couple of them were designed for people that were diabetic to help them reduce their blood sugar levels. And what they found as a byproduct was that they help people lose weight. And so that's a whole other story. We're not going to get into that. And so what do these drugs do? And how do they affect us? So one of the things that they do, and I'm going to go over a brief list, but then I have a prepared statement that kind of goes into it in a little bit more depth. So one of the things that the drugs do is they help reduce your appetite. They help to slow down the stomach emptying. So if there's food in your stomach, you feel full. Think about the time you were hungry and you ate an apple, and then like 20 minutes later, you're ready to eat again. It's because an apple by itself just moves through the stomach right out. And so it makes it so that the stomach stays fuller and doesn't empty as quick. It helps control blood sugar, which we kind of talked about. But I'm going to read this statement because it explains it in a very different, a very different light, which is a little bit concerning. And then I have a lot of other concerns, but this is just one concerning event. Okay. So it says the drugs exert their influence in a coordinated attack on the body's metabolic control centers. In the brain, they activate GLP-1 receptors in the hypothalamus. So that's a gland that releases a hormone, which is the brain's hunger center. This significantly reduces the appetite and food cravings. It slows down the food reward. And so when you eat a cookie, you know how good that makes you feel? That's the food reward. So it slows down food reward pathways that make high calorie foods appealing, like those cookies. And the net result is that the users naturally consume 15 to 30% less calories without experiencing the typical feelings of deprivation associated with dieting. Now, to me, the deprivation associated with dieting is this is the way you've eaten, so you miss it. But there's also the part where If you eat a lot, you have a big stomach. And as you cut down the amount of food you eat, your stomach shrinks. But in that process, you get stomach rumblings and you feel hungry. Totally different story. And if that's something that you guys would like for me to talk about on a show about different dieting strategies, like more holistic dieting strategies, let me know. Okay, but simultaneously, back to the notes, the drug works on the stomach by dramatically slowing gastric emptying. They relax the stomach, slowing the rate at which foods move out. Um, and this, all right, I read that. And then the blood sugar thing. Okay, but there's a lot more to it. There's a lot more to it. Okay, so it messes with your hormones. So anything that has to do with blood sugar has to do with insulin, and the production of insulin and how blood sugar works in your body. If you're talking about your hypothalamus releases hormones in your body. And so if you're taking a drug that either suppresses the production or accelerates the production, then over time, what that says to your body is, I don't have to do this anymore. I can take like a little vacation because she got this medication taking care of this job, and I can go on vacation. And so one concern to me is if you stop taking this medication, what kind of shape are those systems going to be in? Is your body still going to produce insulin correctly? Is your liver going to absorb the glucose, which is what it's supposed to be? What's going to happen to those systems over time? Okay, so that's one of my concerns. What they identify as side effects. Okay, so these are like on the label side effects are, there's minor ones like nausea and indigestion, not anything really bad. But then there are the bad ones that include gallstones, tachycardia, which is where your heart beats too much, thyroid cancer, pancreatitis, or kidney damage. I'm all about that. Okay. One of the other things they talk about is if you take this product, what you should expect as an ideal weight loss is 1 to 2 pounds of weight per week. So what that says is that, all right, I can't even do the math. It would be like, that's what, 8 pounds a month. So let's just say 10, let's say 10 pounds a month. So, over the course of a year, you could potentially, and I'm saying potentially, lose 100 pounds, potentially. Now, one of the things that they also say, and I'm challenging you to watch one of those commercials more closely, because they got the dancing people in the supermarket as they're going through the junk food area. And then somewhere very quietly, they have a little line that comes up, or it says, one done in combination with diet and lifestyle changes. Boom. And they move on. And this is where things start to get interesting. Because we're Americans, and this is what we do. We want the easy fix. We just want to inject ourselves with stuff, and then we get skinny and don't have to do anything. And so even though they sort of recommend diet and lifestyle changes, they don't really emphasize the importance of diet and lifestyle changes in relationship to their medication. And so one of the things that can happen is that if you are not dieting and exercising, you can lose. Okay, so when you take this medication, one of the things that it attacks is your muscle mass. Okay, so our muscles are what burn calories. Like fat doesn't burn calories, muscle burns calories. And so if you have a lot of muscle, you can burn calories more effectively. And what this does is it affects your muscle mass. And it does it in a very similar way to someone who has bariatric surgery, and if they get the sleeve put on, or if they have had a gastro something where basically they chop your stomach out or a big part of your stomach out and just leave you with a little pouch, which can greatly affect your muscle mass because you're just not getting in the calories anymore. So if you are not dieting and exercising, so dieting meaning eating a high protein diet, and exercising meaning exercising, there are a number of things that can happen. So one is if you are not, you won't lose as much weight as someone that is dieting and exercising. After about 9 to 12 months, if you're just taking the medication, you plateau. And then you have to, where if you are dieting and exercising, that time is like 18 to 24 months, and you have to increase the medication. And if you don't increase the medication, you start putting weight back on because you're not getting the full effect. And then I was talking about the muscle mass. So without resistance training, instead of losing 20 to 25% of muscle mass, which is already to me a huge amount, you'll end up losing 30 to 40% of muscle mass, which messes up your metabolic rate, which is not good at all. Not good at all, because now you'll eat something and you might as well just glue it to your thigh because you have nothing inside of you that is going to burn that food up, burn those calories up. Okay. So if you stop taking the medication, so let's say you do it, and let's say you reach your weight goal. Let's say you wanted to lose 50 pounds, or 75 pounds, and you take this medication for 6 months, a year, whatever. They recommend it for 2 years, they recommend it for 2 years, but then they say, well, but you might consider it like high blood pressure medication, that it's something that you're just going to take for the rest of your life. Yeah. Okay. But if you stop taking the medication, especially without any dietary or lifestyle changes, that the weight comes back, and they say that most of the weight will come back within a year of stopping the medication. Let's see. Oh, yeah, here was the line. Most experts now say these medications are for chronic therapy, like blood pressure pills. Stop taking them and the disease comes back. Yay. But there are, well, actually, and I skipped this part about Trump. So Trump made a deal with the manufacturer Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly, who are the manufacturers of these drugs. And currently, it is well over $1,000 a month to buy these medications, like $1,300, $1,500 a month to get these medications. Insurance doesn't really cover it. You might have an insurance that covers it. And he negotiated a deal where if you went through his new web page thing, and I don't know if I have it on here or not. I do not have it on here. But his new Trump.pharmacy.whatever that's supposed to be dropping next year, that you can get these drugs for $350 a month. Or if you're on Medicare or Medicaid, it would be as low as $50 a month. All those SNAP people, you can get it and lose some weight. Anyway, but this is where it concerns me. So right now, they estimate that, 60% of the country is overweight. 60% overweight. And about, I got notes all over the place, and then if you saw my notes, because I scribble all over them to make other notes. But there's just a lot of people. There's a lot of people, like 20, that's the number. So currently, there are 20 million people in the country that are taking this drug. And so of the 20 million people taking this drug, there have been, this is where I'm going, 250,000 250,000 adverse events reported that have been documented in what's called the FARS system, the Federal Adverse Reaction System, something like that. 250,000. Now, if I have a little bit of nausea, if I'm feeling like a little lightheaded, am I going to run to my doctor and have him report an adverse event? Probably not. So I am going to just make the assumption that if something is being reported to this system, that it must be a moderate to severe adverse event. 250,000 of them. And of that, so far, there have been 162 deaths related to that. Also, there have been 7,200 cases of gastroparesis. Okay, so gastroparesis is where, all right, think about this. Our stomach is designed to contract, and it does that in order to break up the foods in our stomach and aid digestion. And so some people that have indigestion issues, it's because their stomach doesn't contract enough to break up the foods appropriately. So one of the things that this drug can do, it can interfere with your body's ability to contract. And they say if you get off the medication in like 4 to 6 weeks, that ability will come back. There are others that are not so hopeful with that number, or it might come back to a certain extent, but it won't go back to where it was. So there's that. Oh, here it is. Approximately 20 million Americans. That's 6% of adults are actively taking this drug. And so that number, the 20 million Americans, doubled from 2024. And they feel like it doubled from 2024 because there was more access, because of the nonstop media coverage of this drug and how it was a wonder. But I had my buddy AI extrapolate those numbers out into the future. And so it estimated that in 2026, there would be 35 to 50 million people taking this drug. But this is now at the new lower cost. And there would be 90 to 195,000 adverse events reported and 180 to 585 deaths. So by 2028, and I just went out a few years, there would be 75 to 120 million people on this product. There would be 200,000 to 480,000 adverse events reported and 400 to 1,400 deaths. I mean, that's a lot. I mean, that is really crazy, and it doesn't really fix the problem. It doesn't fix the problem that we don't eat good, that we don't exercise, that we are more interested in taking a pill and shooting ourselves up with something versus having discipline and doing the things that we need in order to be healthy. And so this is just a Band-Aid, in my opinion, that is just going to make drug manufacturers a lot of money, and people are just going to ignore and write off these adverse events as, the price of doing business. And it's expensive. Even $350 a month is a lot of money when you can sit there and stop buying potato chips, make homemade food, go and take a walk around the block. I mean, there's so many things that you can do to shift your internal clock that it seems silly to me to go and put yourself at risk for one of these things to lose some weight. You probably are all going, yeah, but you're all skinny. You probably can eat anything you want. And I'm like, no. I only wish I spend a lot of time staying this way. And my boyfriend is always freaking trying to feed me. And periodically I have to pull a picture out of my sisters. Love them, bless their heart. But I pull the picture out of my sisters and I go, do you want me to look like that? Because if you want me to look like that, then keep feeding me. So It is possible. It is possible to get rid of the weight and keep it off. But it's more about making a commitment to yourself and a commitment to your health than it is about taking a pill, because it's only going to be there and it's only going to work as long as you take it. And if you're willing or interested in taking that medication to the day you die, God bless you. God bless you. Okay, so that was my thing tonight. I've been pretty hot on this topic. And actually, well, yeah, I've been pretty hot on this topic. I just am like, seriously, there are so many other drugs that would provide benefit to people than this. I mean, we do have a weight and obesity epidemic in the United States. And that's one of the things I talk about in that article that I just dropped, Hidden Dangers, Exposing the True Cost of America's Chronic Disease Crisis. And it really is a crisis, but part of the crisis is that our government is not providing education or information so that we can take care of ourselves. And, you know, big tech is following along, you know, and they would rather give you a pill and give you a drug and have you lay on your sofa eating popcorn and watching TV all day than learning how to maintain your health. And that just, it just makes me fuming. Anyway, all right, I'm done. Anyway, so if you need help dieting, you know, learning strategies to maintain your health, to get your weight down, you know, and you don't want to take that medication, even though you maybe can afford it, reach out to me at soulhealer.com. That's soulhealer.com, and set up a time for a private consultation. This show is also brought to you by the Institute of Applied Energetics. That's appliedenergeticsinstitute.com, where you can learn to become a medical intuitive counselor, or a certified energy medicine practitioner, all from the comfort of your home. And you can download my free 50-page, what did it do that for? There, my free 50-page guide, Jumpstart Your Intuition, to help you down the road to start learning how to tap into that mysterious energy that we all have. And so for anybody who is listening to this show in a repeat format or after the live show and you want to join in the fun, please go to my web or go to my YouTube channel, Just Energy Radio on YouTube, 7 p.m. Central every Thursday evening, and log in and get a free on-air psychic reading from me. And don't forget to go and like and subscribe to my different social media channels, YouTube, Substack, Twitter, and Rumble. I post on them quite a bit, especially Substack. And I would just love to be able to connect with you there. Okay? Go back. Okay, there I am. All right, so there's a lot of comments in the chat room, and we're going to get things started. And I'm going to